My name is Natalie. I am 29 years old. I live in a small flat near the city. I work at a pet grooming shop. I wash dogs, cut their hair, and clean their paws. My hands are always busy. I come home tired, but I like my job. It is simple, and I love animals. I met Brian 2 years ago. He came into the shop with a small dog. His dog was quiet and sweet. Brian smiled at me. He asked me if I liked dogs. I said yes. We talked for 10 minutes that day. Then he left. 2 days later, he came back. He didn't bring the dog. He came just to see me. He asked if I wanted to have coffee. I said yes. I felt shy, but also excited. I had not dated anyone in a long time. Brian worked as a driver. He moved things from one place to another. He said he liked being on the road. He said it gave him time to think. I thought that was sweet. After 1 month, we became a couple. We ate dinner together, went to the park, and watched movies on weekends. He made me feel special. He always had something nice to say. He told me I looked pretty even when I was tired. I liked that. After 6 months, Brian moved into my flat. He said it would help us save money. I agreed. I liked having him close. At first, everything was fine. We made dinner together. We laughed. We shared stories. But then small things started to change. He stopped calling me when he was late. He looked at his phone too much. He smiled when he read some messages, but he didn't tell me why. I asked once, "Who are you talking to?" He said, "Just a friend." He didn't say more. I wanted to believe him. I didn't want to fight, so I stayed quiet. I thought maybe I was overthinking. One night, Brian came home very late. I was already in bed. He didn't say where he was. He didn't even kiss me. He just lay down and turned away. I asked, "Are you okay?" He said, "I'm tired. Let's sleep." I felt something strange, something cold. The next day, I cleaned the room. I picked up his clothes from the floor. I found a small thing under the pillow. It was a gold earring. It was not mine. I don't wear earrings like that. I held it in my hand for a long time. I didn't want to believe what I was thinking. I put the earring in my drawer. I didn't say anything to him. I wanted to wait. Maybe I was wrong. 2 days later, he smiled at me like nothing happened. He kissed me and said, "You're the best." I felt confused. My heart was heavy, but I still wanted to believe him. I still hoped it was nothing. That night, I took the earring from the drawer. I showed it to him. I asked, "Do you know what this is?" He looked at it. His face changed. He said, "Where did you find that?" I said, "In our bed." He said it was old. He said it was mine. He said maybe it got stuck in the pillow before. But I knew he was lying. I never had earrings like that. I never put jewelry under pillows. I didn't argue. I just looked at him. I said, Okay. He went quiet. Then he smiled again, like everything was fine. I didn't sleep that night. I looked at the wall. I thought about our time together. I remembered the smiles, the dinners, the long walks. Were they all fake? A few days later, I checked his phone. I didn't want to do it, but I had to know. I saw messages from someone named Tina. They talked like they were more than friends. She sent pictures. He sent hearts. I felt cold, but I stayed calm. I put the phone back. I didn't say anything that day. I went to work. I cleaned the dogs. I smiled at customers. But my mind was not there. That night I asked him again, "Who is Tina?" He froze. Then he laughed. He said, "Just a girl I knew before you." I said, "Why are you still talking to her?" He said, "It's nothing." I said, "Are you seeing her?" He said, "Of course not." I wanted to believe him again. I wanted to believe that he was just being friendly, that maybe he didn't mean anything, but my heart knew better. 3 weeks later, he said he had to go on a short trip for work. He said he would be back in 2 days. He left with a small bag. I stayed home alone. That night, I saw a post online. It was a photo of him at a restaurant. Tina was sitting across from him. They looked happy. He said he was working, but he was on a date. I didn't call him. I didn't message him. I just sat on the sofa. I turned off the lights. I sat in the dark and listened to the silence. When he came back, he brought flowers. He smiled and said, "I missed you." I said, "Did you?" He didn't answer. I showed him the photo. I asked, "Were you working or dating?" He looked down. He said, "I'm sorry. It just happened." I asked, "How many times did it just happen?" He didn't answer. I asked, "Did she sleep here?" He said nothing. I looked at him. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt tired. I said, "You need to leave." He said, "It was a mistake. I love you." I said, "You lied. And you lied again. I can't believe you anymore." Before I continue my story, I want to ask you something. Where are you listening from? Sometimes I wonder if someone out there really understands me. Just knowing you're here gives me strength. Brian did not leave right away. He stayed in the flat for one more night. I slept in the other room. I closed the door. I turned off the light. I did not want to see him. I did not want to hear his voice. I lay in bed, but I could not sleep. I looked at the ceiling and listened to every sound. I heard him walk in the kitchen. I heard the water run. I heard the door of the fridge open and close. He was still there, living like nothing had changed. In the morning, I got dressed and left early. I did not want to be home. I did not want to sit with him. I went to the small park near the river. I sat on a bench and watched the ducks swim. The air was cool. The sky was gray. People walked by, but I did not look at them. I stayed there for 2 hours. When I came back, he was gone. His bag was not there. His shoes were not by the door. I felt something strange. I was not happy. I was not sad. I felt quiet inside. I sat on the sofa and looked at the small table in front of me. There was a cup he used every day. It was still on the table, half full of coffee. I did not touch it. I let it stay there. It reminded me of him, but I was too tired to move. For 2 days, I did not speak to anyone. I went to work and came home. I ate simple food. I cleaned the kitchen. I took long showers. I watched old movies. But inside, I felt empty. Something was missing, but I didn't know what it was. On the 3rd day, I opened my closet. Half of it was empty now. His shirts, his shoes, his jacket, all gone. I stood there for a few minutes. I looked at the space that used to be full. I remembered folding his clothes. I remembered washing them. I remembered the smell of his shampoo. All those little things were now memories. I went to the drawer and opened it. The gold earring was still inside. I looked at it. It was small and shiny. I closed the drawer and stood up. I walked to the window and opened it. The air came in. I stood there, holding the earring. I looked at the street below. People walked fast. Cars moved slowly. Everything looked normal. But I didn't feel normal. That weekend, I stayed home. I cleaned the floors. I washed the blankets. I threw away old papers. I removed his photo from the fridge. I found one more shirt behind the door. I put it in a bag and left it near the bin. I wanted to take away every piece of him. On Sunday evening, I sat on the balcony with a cup of tea. The sun was going down. I looked at the buildings across the street. I wondered if the people inside were happy. I wondered if they smiled, if they talked, if they felt safe. I wanted to feel safe again. I wanted to feel like I was not broken. Monday morning came fast. I went to work and tried to smile. My coworker asked if I was okay. I said I was just tired. She nodded and said nothing more. I was glad. I didn't want to explain. I didn't want to talk about Brian. I didn't want to say, he lied. He hurt me. He walked away. Those words were too heavy. Days passed slowly. I woke up, worked, came home, and went to sleep. I ate toast and soup. I did not listen to music. I did not laugh. I felt like I was just moving, not living. I looked at my phone, but I didn't call anyone. I didn't want to hear questions. I didn't want to answer. One night, I sat at the table and looked around my flat. Everything was quiet. Everything was still. I thought about the first day Brian moved in. I thought about the small pizza we shared on the floor. We had no table back then. We laughed a lot. That memory felt far away now. The next weekend, I walked to the market. I bought fruit and bread. I passed a shop window. I saw a couple inside. They were smiling. He held her hand. She looked at him with soft eyes. I looked away. I didn't want to remember what that felt like. At home, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. My face looked tired. My eyes looked dull. I touched my hair. It felt dry. I used to take more care. Now I just didn't feel like trying. I opened the bathroom drawer and threw away an old bottle of his shampoo. The smell was too strong. It made me feel sick. A week later, I received a message. It was from Brian. He wrote, "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen. I didn't answer. He wrote again, "I miss you." I turned off my phone and put it in the drawer. I sat on the floor and took a deep breath. I did not cry. I just felt tired again. I knew what he wanted. He wanted to say sorry. He wanted another chance. He wanted me to forget what happened. But I could not forget. I gave him my trust. He broke it twice. That kind of pain stays for a long time. One morning, I woke up before the alarm. The sky was still dark. I made tea and sat on the balcony. I listened to the birds. I watched the first light come through the clouds. For the first time in weeks, I felt something. It was small, but it was real. It was the feeling of calm. I went back inside and opened the window in the bedroom. I let the air in. I opened the closet and looked at my clothes. I chose a yellow top. It was soft. I hadn't worn it in months. I put it on and smiled a little. I walked to work that day and looked at the trees. I saw small flowers near the road. I saw a child run with a red balloon. Life was still moving. The world was still turning. And I was still here. At work, I washed 3 dogs. One of them licked my face. I laughed. My coworker looked at me and smiled. She said, "You look better today." I said, "I feel a little better." It was not a big thing, but it was a start. That evening, I made pasta with tomato sauce. I sat at the table and ate slowly. I played soft music. I lit a candle. Not for anyone else, just for me. The room felt warm. My heart felt quiet. I didn't think of Brian. I didn't think of Tina. I just enjoyed my food. I knew I still had a long way to go. Healing takes time. Pain does not leave in one night. But I also knew this. I was strong enough to choose peace. I was strong enough to say no to more lies. And I was strong enough to stand alone, without fear. The next few weeks were quiet. My days were slow, but they started to feel normal again. I woke up early, drank tea, went to work, and came home. I cooked small meals. I cleaned my flat. I lit a candle every night before bed. These small things helped me feel calm. I no longer checked my phone for his name. I no longer waited for his messages. Sometimes I still remembered his smile. Sometimes I still thought about the way he laughed. But I didn't feel sad like before. I only felt distant, like it all happened in another life. One Saturday, I cleaned out the last drawer in the hallway. At the bottom, I found the gold earring again. It had been there for weeks. I picked it up and looked at it. It was still shiny. It still meant the same thing. The moment I lost trust. I walked to the balcony and opened my hand. The wind was soft. I let the earring fall into the small bin outside. I didn't need it anymore. The flat felt more like mine now. The space was mine. The quiet was mine. I started reading books again. I made a corner in the room for a small chair and a lamp. It became my place to rest after work. I sat there with tea and read simple stories. I didn't feel lonely. I felt peaceful. One evening, I took a long walk through the park. The air was cool and the sun was low. I saw families with children. I saw people walking dogs. I saw someone sitting alone on a bench. I sat across from the small lake and watched the water move slowly. I felt still inside, like the water. Later that night, I looked through old photos on my phone. I saw one with Brian. We were smiling near a tree. I didn't delete it. I just moved it to a folder I didn't open often. I didn't want to forget everything. I just didn't want to see it every day. The past was real, but it didn't need to control me anymore. The next morning, I woke up with energy. I washed my hair. I wore a dress I hadn't worn in a long time. It was blue with small flowers. I walked into town and stopped at a small cafe near the bus stop. I sat outside and had tea. The sun felt warm on my face. People passed by, and I smiled at a few of them. I felt part of the world again. A man at the next table asked the server for sugar. He looked my way and smiled. I smiled back. He didn't speak to me again, but that small smile stayed in my mind all day. It reminded me that kindness still existed. Not every smile had to lead to love, but every smile could still bring light. At work, things got busier. New people brought their pets. I brushed small dogs and cleaned their ears. I talked more with my coworker. We laughed about silly things. We made tea during breaks. She asked me once, "Do you feel better now?" I said yes. And I meant it. One day, I stayed at work late. A new dog had come in, scared and dirty. I washed him slowly, talked to him, and gave him a soft towel. When I looked in his eyes, I saw something that felt familiar. Fear, but also hope. That small dog reminded me of myself, just a few months ago. Scared, but still here, still alive. After work, I walked home in the rain. I didn't run. I let the rain touch my face. It felt soft. I looked up at the sky. It was dark but not angry, just quiet. I smiled a little. I wasn't afraid of rain anymore. When I got home, I made hot soup. I sat on the sofa with my blanket and a book. The room felt warm. I looked around and saw all the small changes. The clean table, the new pillow, the empty coat hook near the door. These were signs of a new life, a life I made for myself. One evening, my coworker invited me to a small dinner with her friends. I didn't want to go at first. I felt nervous, but then I said yes. I wanted to try. At the dinner, I sat with 5 other people. They laughed, shared stories, and passed food around. I didn't talk much, but I listened. I felt welcome. One of the guests asked if I lived alone. I said yes. He smiled and said, "That must be peaceful." I said, "It is." He didn't ask more. He just understood. That small moment felt good. I didn't need to explain. I didn't need to defend my life. Later that week, I started walking more. I walked before work and after dinner. I looked at the trees, the lights in windows, the signs in shops. I felt more connected to the world. I was not hiding anymore. Some nights, I still thought about Brian, not in a sad way, just like a memory that passed through. I didn't hate him. I didn't miss him. I just remembered him. And then I let the thought go. One night I sat by the window and watched the stars. I thought about how far they were, how quiet, how calm. I felt like one of them, small but bright. I didn't need to be part of anyone else's world to shine. I had my own light. I did not fall in love again right away. I did not rush. I did not